How's it going, everybody? My name is Philip, and today we're going to be reacting to Geography Now, New Zealand. Obviously, because we're doing a video about New Zealand, I figured what better shirt to wear than my Auckland Blues rugby jersey. Guernsey. Is it just Guernsey in Australia? Like when it comes to the AFL shirts, Guernsey's jerseys? Is that just that, or is it just how in general? Anyways, yeah. So anyways, I've been having a lot of fun getting into rugby, which is why I obviously have this shirt. And they're in the Super Pacific Final, which is dope. I've been watching them this entire season, and I've been so happy and excited. They've been my one consistently good team. I will say that. Especially during the beginning of the year when all my teams were kind of being trash. Okay, not trash, but they weren't doing too great. The Blues have been my consistently good team. So, let's hope they could be my first championship team in over a decade. I don't choose teams very well. So, hopefully the Blues win it. Just saying, I don't know if you're a Crusaders fan. I'm just saying. We were number one for a reason. Yo, this is where the cocky shit comes out, though. This is probably why it's a good thing I don't have good teams. Because then I start, I want to start talking like, see, no, this is why we're the best. And but today we're going to be, like I said, we're going to be reacting to Geography Now. I love geography, for the most part. I've always known that New Zealand was down there. Also because of the Women's World Cup type of thing. And New Zealand's always been pretty much a big note in it. Also, I think Ali Riley, she was a soccer player. And she's a New Zealand player. And she used to play for a team up here called FC Gold Pride that folded when the league folded like 2012, 10-ish. And they won the league. They won the championship all the way back then. So it's been a while since I've seen a championship team. I mean, I could say that I'm a fan of the Warriors, of the basketball team, but I don't really care for basketball, so they don't really count. But let's check out Geography Now, New Zealand.
Now, when I think of New Zealand, really only one word seems to come to mind. Tau matawhakatangi hanga ko au au o tamatea tsuri pu ka piki maunga horo nuku pokai whenua kita na tahu.
What? I will say, though, that reminds me of the fucking train. I think, was it used to be a train station or something in Wales where, like, the last little bit is go-go-gotch or go-go-gosh or some shit like that? That's what that reminds me of.
It's time to learn geography now!
Hey everyone, I'm your host Barbs. New Zealand is one of those places where a few people have made a powerful image for themselves. It's one of the last places on Earth to be discovered and inhabited by humans. And when they arrived, it was unlike anything anyone had ever seen. Mostly because there were these massive 12 feet tall bird monsters. We'll get into that in a bit. But first, New Zealand is not only a key player in the ocean nations, but a geographic anomaly. As in, half the time when you look at artwork or decorations or newscasts or even educational books, New Zealand is forgotten from the map. Kiwis even joke about it. Even their government website 404 page not found website pokes fun at it. Anyway, New Zealand, or Aotearoa, is located in the southwestern Pacific Ocean, about 1,200 miles or 2,000 kilometers off the coast of Australia, and about 600 miles or 1,000 kilometers from the nearest major islands of Fiji, Tonga, and New Caledonia. Meaning, technically, France is their closest neighbor. The country is made up of two main large islands, aptly named the North Island, or Te Ika a Maui, which makes up about 42% of the landmass, yet holds about 3/4 of the population, and the larger, yet less populated South Island, or Te Waiponamu, at about 56% of the landmass. The remaining 2-ish% of the landmass is made up of hundreds of interior and outlying islands, 33 main ones that are either around the main two islands, like the largest one, Stewart Island, just south of South Island. Then you have the outlying island chains, like the northernmost Kermadec Islands, the easternmost Chatham Islands, and the sub-Antarctic southernmost point, the Campbell Islands. The country is a unitary state divided into 16 councils, 11 regional councils, and 5 unitary regional councils. The Chatham Islands act as their own special territorial authority. The second largest city, Wellington, is the capital, the southernmost capital in the world. However, Auckland up north is the largest city, which holds about a third of the entire population of the country, with the largest and busiest airport, Auckland International. Otherwise, Christchurch on South Island is the third largest city and holds the second busiest airport, Christchurch International. But wait, that's not all. The sovereignty claim extends even further, and then you get the 3 New Zealand realm territories and free association island nations. These are Tokelau, the Cook Islands, and Niue. Tokelau is considered a non-self-governing dependent territory. It also has a territorial dispute with American Samoa over Swains Island, whereas the Cook Islands and Niue are labeled as self-governing states in free association with New Zealand. Finally, you have the Ross Dependency, which is New Zealand's claim to Antarctica, which of course under the Antarctic Treaty does not actually fall under their sovereignty, but you know, a lot of people like to say they have something they can't. Whew, for a nation that doesn't even show up half the time on maps, there's a lot going on here.
But wait, if New Zealand is just an island in the middle of the Pacific, which continent is New Zealand a part of?
Ah, good question. That is a question that has kind of stumped cartographers for centuries. In the simplest sense, categorically, New Zealand is part of the broader region known as Oceania, which is basically just Australia plus everything else in Melanesia, Micronesia, and Polynesia. Technically, Australia and New Zealand together are called Australasia. However, it's weird because New Zealand doesn't lie on the same continental shelf as Australia. This has led to the consideration of New Zealand belonging to a newer subregion known as Zealandia, classified by some dude in the 90s as either a continental fragment or a microcontinent made up of a submerged continental crust shelf that expands all the way from New Caledonia to an empty spot in the ocean just south of the Campbell Islands. 93% of Zealandia is submerged, with New Zealand being the largest protruding segment. Either way, however you want to categorize it, New Zealand is kind of strange.
Wait, go back to the self-governing island thing. Do they belong to New Zealand, or are they full countries?
Good question. It's kind of like this. Okay guys, look, the British just kind of put you under my jurisdiction, so I guess that means you're all New Zealand citizens, okay?
Yeah, but we all have our own languages and customs and want to write a constitution for ourselves with free association status. We're basically countries in our own right, but under your overarching sovereignty, I guess.
Like, your military can come in for defense, but otherwise we got everything else covered.
I mean, guys, I have less than 2,000 people on less than 5 square miles of land on 3 islands. I think I'll just become a dependent territory state.
All right, fair enough. 2 kind of countries with loose ties and 1 dependent territory country with stronger ties. Got it.
Plus, hey, I became the first completely solar-powered nation in the world.
Not exactly fully functional sovereign nation state by definition, but yeah, good for you. Some places of interest in New Zealand might include the world's steepest street at a gradient of 38 degrees, the National Museum, Auckland's Sky Tower, you can actually jump off of it, the Rotorua Geysers and traditional Maori Village, Rainbow's End and Splash Planet, the International Antarctic Center, Hobbiton, so many wine fields like the ones in Marlborough, 90 Mile Beach, which is actually only 56 miles, Waitomo Caves with glowworms, Frying Pan Lake, and the Meraki spherical boulders. And honestly, I could go on with all the natural wonders of this country, but that would take like 50 videos, and we gotta cram as much as we can in this one. So let's just talk about all the natural stuff of New Zealand, shall we? Now, New Zealand is an outdoors country, world-renowned for its mind-blowingly wonderful landscape displayed in a number of films and movies.
Fun fact, the Lord of the Rings gave them so much publicity and tourism money that they even have a Minister of the Rings in their parliament.
Oh, do they now?
You wrote the script for the episode, and I'm just reading off the teleprompter, so I figured you would know that.
I did. First of all, the country is located in the Ring of Fire on the convergence of the Pacific and Australian plates that creates the mountainous southern Alps of the southern island. Here you can find the tallest peak, Mount Cook or Aoraki, at over 12,000 feet or 3,700 meters, whereas across the Cook Strait, the smaller Kaweka Range can be found on the North Island. This, in return, makes the country subject to earthquakes and volcanic activity. There are about 83 known volcanoes of all types, and the largest active one being Ruapehu on North Island. Otherwise, you can see other volcanic wonders like the dormant Banks Peninsula on South Island, and the eerily perfect circular Mount Taranaki on the west side of North Island. Just a skip away, you find the largest lake, Lake Taupo in the Taupo caldera, one of the largest supervolcanoes on Earth. From there, the lake is drained by the longest river of the country, the Waikato. Now, New Zealand is interesting because due to its shape, there is no part of the country that is more than about 80 miles or so from the ocean. The flatter valleys on the sides of the mountains are where most people live and produce crops and livestock. Skip a little further west and you get the least inhabited and difficult to access, but most breathtaking part of New Zealand, the Fjordland. Steep cliffs plunging into the Tasman Sea, with Milford Sound being the most popular spot and the only one accessible by road. New Zealand ranks as one of the top most landform diverse countries on Earth, having everything from alpine forests, glaciers, geothermal geysers. They even have a small desert in the middle of North Island. And on some of the coasts, you have tropical beaches with magnetic black sand containing magnetite. Seriously, I still have some. Check it out. This is from Piha Beach in North Island. Whoa, it sticks on. Now the
Okay, so there's a lot to take in right there. For one, that last bit kind of reminds me. So I read a lot of manga, and Dr. Stone's one of them, and they needed black sand or they needed something like that. That's completely different. But I will say that for a long time, like if for people that don't fully know Australia, I caught it. For people that don't know New Zealand. I still feel like shit for even just saying that. Anyways, for people that don't know much about New Zealand, I think that they would think that Auckland is the capital. I'm not gonna lie, I kind of did as well. But so I was thinking that I'm glad that they kind of asked the question on the islands, because I was just like, okay, so are they? Like, are they their own country? Like, what are they? So the way I see it is, they're kind of like Puerto Rico, where they're their own country, in a sense, and yet, yeah, they but then again, Puerto Rico is like I said, it's its own country, and a lot of the times it's not. I don't feel like we really do anything for Puerto Rico. Honestly, I feel like we just like, oh yeah, no, you're part of the U.S. kind of, you know. So, and yeah, like I said, he's going quite fast. It's also quite interesting. I've always thought that they were part of Oceania, just because every time I play like FIFA or every time I play like any sports games that have international, like the whole globe, or like FIFA World Cup games, back when they used to have pretty much the World Cup games specifically. Like the last one I had was like 2014, but it was always classified in Oceania with Australia and all these other, you know, island nations. So I kind of already figured that. It is interesting that, you know, the whole plate thingy, I didn't know. There's a lot of this I'm just probably not going to know, honestly. So this is going to be fun to know.
One thing about New Zealand that set it apart upon discovery is that other than 2 species of bat, the entire island had no mammals prior to human encounter. Now this is usually the part where Noah comes in, but he had a scheduling conflict that couldn't be here today, so therefore, I saw Min Random Hannah. Hannah, take it away.
The country is a bird haven with over 200 species, over half endemic to New Zealand. And the funny thing, many of which are flightless. It's like the flightless bird capital of the world. Species such as the kakapo, the world's only flightless nocturnal parrot, and they have more species of penguin than anywhere else on the planet. At one point a long time ago, they used to have the moa, a 12-foot tall monster, until it was hunted by the native Maori to extinction. Then you have the national animal, the famous kiwi, a flightless bird which comes in 5 forms on both islands.
Okay, so that I just thought that they had a lot of kiwis, like the little fruit thingies. Birds, I just thought that that the New Zealand's nickname of kiwis was because of the fruit, not because of a bird. So that explains that.
Known for their hair-like feathers, long beaks with nostrils, making them some of the only few bird species that can smell. Otherwise, with flying birds, you have the kia, the world's only alpine parrot. And if you see one, they are curious creatures, unafraid of humans, that love to chew on shiny objects or rubber.
Seriously, those guys tried to steal my stuff one time.
Outside of the bird world, you can find reptiles like the turatara, which has a 3rd parietal eye on the top of its head, or the giant weta, the heaviest insect on Earth. Ugh. Resource-wise, the country is known for its huge dairy farming and livestock industry. Jade or greenstone is a precious stone mined and sold here, as well often carved into jewelry or traditional Maori tools and ornaments. Besides all that, though, much of the country makes money through tourism, specifically outdoor tourism.
I always thought that was
specifically
purely
Queensland on South Island.
Jade.
This place offers everything from skydiving, paragliding, and zorbing, which, by the way, the Kiwis invented. And speaking of Kiwi inventions, food. Kiwis are without a doubt seafood folk. Native species like gurnard, hoki, Hake, hapuku, pawa, and crayfish are made into numerous dishes, cooked, raw, smoked, steamed, battered, and fried with chips. If that's not your thing, some non-fishy Kiwi dishes might include things like roast lamb, savory meat pies, hokey pokey ice cream, Kiwi-style burger, manuka honey, kumara, LNP drink, pavlova cake, and one of the most traditional Maori dishes, hangi. And speaking of cultural tradition, we go to...
Thank you, Hannah. Feel free to follow her on Instagram.
No problem.
Yeah, that's a thing now. Now, this is going to be the best part of the episode because the people of New Zealand, known as Kiwis, are the biggest treasure you'll find. First of all, the country has about 5 million people and often ranks as one of the top 3 Ease of Business Index countries in the world with the least corruption. At somewhere around 74%, the country is made up primarily of peoples of European descent, mostly of English, Scottish, and Irish ancestry. About 15% of the country is native Maori, 7% Pacific Islander, and the rest are mostly Asian of various countries like China, Korea, and Japan. Yes, by the way, it's pronounced Maori, not Maori, Maori. They use the New Zealand dollar as their currency, they use the Type I plug outlet, and they drive on the left side of the road. Now, we all know that English is the most widely spoken language in the country with a distinct Kiwi dialect. To outsiders, it sounds just like the Australian one, but they swear it's different. They have some distinct Kiwi words. Here's my Kiwi buddy Jared explaining.
Bro, it's a beaut. I'm off to the dairy. Is that us? Yeah, nah, it's a cracker, but it's ages and...
Yo, hold up. It's a good day out, man. Let's go to the grocery store. Bro, it's a beaut. I'm off to the dick. Is that us? What? Yo, that's gonna take some getting used to. I don't know if I'm gonna. So I get, okay, what I would expect that sounds like. It's like, bro, it's a beautiful day. I'm off to the dairy. So I'm off. So I would think I'm off to the farm, the dairy farm? That's what I would think. Is that us? I would assume that he would be asking, do you want to go? So basically, hey, yo, it's a beautiful day. I'm off to the dairy farm. You want to go? That's what I thought he would be saying. But it's a good day out, man. It's similar. Let's go to the grocery store. It's somewhat the same, except for I said dairy farm.
Oh, it's a beaut. I'm off to the dairy. Is that us?
No, it's nice out, but it's too far, and we are in the countryside.
Yeah, nah, it's a cracker, but it's ages and we're in the wops. Egg, you'll take...
Seriously, it's near. Put on your flip-flops sandals. Yeah, okay. It'll be easy.
Taking the piss. It's close as. Chuck on your jandals and it'll be a piece of piss.
Yo, is this how you... What? No. I feel like this is...
Whatever then. Only if you stop rocking me out. Stoked. Sweet as.
Well, that was a lot to read. He just said stoked.
It's ages and we're in the wops. Egg, you're taking the piss. It's close as. Chuck on your jandals and it'll be a piece of piss. Whatever then. Only if you stop rocking me out.
Stoked. I am ever so pleased with the outcome. Okay, so I'm sure that this translation is not 100%. Like, I've seriously thought about moving to Australia and New Zealand. And for New Zealand, if this is how y'all talk, y'all gonna be laughing at me. I'm just gonna be staring at you guys like, yes, yes. Okay. What are we doing? Can I get like is there like a translation on my phone? Can I get like a translation so I can like look it up and just be like, oh, cool. That's what you said. I don't have sandals. Out of all that, that's the only thing that would come up.
Sweet as.
Nonetheless, there are actually 2 other official languages of New Zealand, Maori and New Zealand Sign Language, making New Zealand the first country to adopt signing as an official language, even though only half of 1% knows it. Now let's talk about culture and the whole Maori thing. The Maori traditionally come from about 100 or so iwi, or tribes or peoples, spread throughout both islands. Most in the north part of the country, the largest being the Ngapuhi at over 100,000 people. Their culture is a huge integral factor that plays into what it means to be Kiwi. I mean, instead of hello, you'll often often hear the Maori word kia ora as a greeting. Most schools teach the Maori language in elementary years, and there are immersion schools as well. In addition, they have a few television channels and radio stations that speak almost entirely in Maori. Today, the majority of native speakers are found in the North Island, most heavily concentrated in the Northland and Gisborne and Bay of Plenty regions. And speaking of Maori, we cannot do this episode without talking about the haka. Almost everyone on the island knows one form of the traditional war dance performed by both men and women, known for its aggressive movements, loud chanting, and intimidating facial expressions. Very often it's performed at sporting events. The haka is not only used at games or as a means to intimidate, though. It can be used in a variety of situations, ranging from birthday parties, funerals, even weddings, where the people celebrate the union of two people happily, and everyone takes part in it, whether you are ethnically Maori or non-Maori. It's a tradition that really unites everyone on the island, regardless of race. Pretty cool, right? And now let's talk about tattoos. And actually, let's have another co-host do this. Let's see, which options do I have? Who can I select? Let's see, Hannah already did one. Why not Ken? All right, Ken, take it away.
You might occasionally come across someone with kirituhi, or skin art,
I
or
think those are
tamoko,
super
which
dope.
are face tattoos. There's so much information that goes into this, but
Maybe not the face
basically,
part.
Maori tradition did not have a specific written script. Instead, they use a documented information and history through a series of wood carvings and tattoos. No two are alike, as each person's tattoos told a specific story of who they were. Generally, the left side is reserved for the father's lineage, and the right side, the mother's. The patterns can describe everything from tribe, rank, work, expertise, athletic accomplishments, and so on. In other news, Kiwis are pretty athletic. You cannot talk about New Zealand without mentioning rugby. They are three-time World Cup championship winners, and often when they don't win, they place in the top 3.
Thank you, Ken. Feel free to follow him on Instagram. And now it's time to talk about history. In the quickest way I can summarize it: Bird Island, no humans. Maori come in from Polynesia, maybe sometime around the 1200s. Maori Pa settlements established. Moa bird is hunted to extinction. Tribal battles for land. Abel Tasman becomes the first European to come in contact. They kind of forget about it until the British come in by like 100 years later. For a while, they just kind of traded with the Maori. Intertribal wars with the new weapons that they acquired by the Europeans. Missionaries. British colony. New Zealand wars. Treaty of Waitangi. Controversy with mistranslation. Self-government within the British Empire. Women's suffrage. Massive immigration wave. World War I, they play a role in Pacific warfare against German-occupied Samoa. World War II, they play a role again in the Pacific, but this time against the Japanese in Papua New Guinea. Statute of Westminster Adoption Act. Muldoon years. 1980 reforms. 1990s and early 2000s, business really starts to boom. Earthquake in Christchurch. Some notable people from New Zealand or of Kiwi descent might include people like Hongihika, Honeheke, Te Puea Herangi, Maui Pomare, Potatau Te Ferofero, Ernest Rutherford, Kate Shepherd, Sir Apir...
Yo, we go from this name
Maui Pomare, Potatau Te Ferofero, Ernest
to Ernest Rutherford. Yo, we go from actual like native names to Ernest Rutherford. Like that's like when you go on the when you watch like the German national team like years back and they had all these like Schweinsteiger and shit, and then there's Gomez. Like, bro, like, you sure you belong in the German national team? Like, that's not a German name.
Rutherford, Kate Shepherd, Sir Apirana Ngata, Sir Edmund Hillary, Sir Peter Jackson, Jacinda Ardern, Russell Crowe, Jonah Lomu, Sir Colin Meads, Dame Fina Cooper, Flight of the Conchords, Bruce McLaren, Catherine Mansfield, Lord, and the meme page Dolan Dark, I was told. Yeah, quite a few cool Kiwis out there, which brings us to our next segment, the Kiwi Crew. They're friends. The Friend Zone.
I think everyone here.
All right,
thought
diplomatically
that Lord was
speaking,
Australian,
New Zealand, for lack of a better term, is basically like Australia's Canada. They get along with nearly everyone, and unless if it's a rugby match, it's hard to harbor any animosity towards them. And even if it is a rugby match, it's like, okay, you guys can win. Just do that haka thing again. First of all, as part of numerous international organizations, New Zealand has harnessed an international network of alliances since its inception. For one, South Africa, Argentina, Uruguay, and Chile have had close links as members of the Convention for the Conservation of Antarctic Marine Living Resources. These 5 nations kind of act as like the southern gateways to Antarctica, and they hold a high level of responsibility when it comes to monitoring the South Seas. China has an interesting, kind of good, but kind of controversial relationship with New Zealand. Not only have Chinese immigrants been living in New Zealand since the 19th century, but in 2008, a bold move with a free trade agreement was established, and today they are the second largest import and export partner. The problem is the housing market. Many Chinese investors have bought out property in metropolitan areas that remain unused and empty for the purpose of real estate appreciation. This has left many Kiwis unable to live in the houses in their own country. This has frustrated many of them for a long time, leaving them to ask the government for reforms in foreign investment policy. As a former British colony, they've always been closely linked to the UK, and UK citizens, often Scottish, choose to migrate and live in New Zealand. Problem is distance. New Zealand is one of the furthest members in the Commonwealth from the UK, and over time the UK relations waned as the UK paid more attention to the EU. Nonetheless, they've grown up, don't need to hold mommy's hand anymore, and they can handle their own affairs. Then we get to the quadfecta, the USA, Canada, and Australia. There is somewhat of an unspoken, unbreakable bond between these four. New Zealand has fought alongside the US in almost every major global event from the 20th century and on. There was a slight hiccup in the ANZUS Security Treaty in the 80s in which they decided to initiate a nuclear-free zone in their territorial waters. Nonetheless, relations are still strong and they are considered one of the closest allies. Canada and New Zealand are very close though. They both think very similarly and are both Commonwealth nations with the same queen as their technical head of state. Both share similar views on a variety of issues. Both are the smaller versions of a bigger neighbor that gets all the attention. Business, trade, and tourism is strong between them, and in a way they kind of love each other for all these reasons. When it comes to their best friend, however, as much as they love to poke fun, mock, ridicule, and spit on each other, they cannot deny that Australia is the closest. Australia even has a clause in its constitution that allows New Zealand to become a part of their country if they should ever want to for whatever reason. Although New Zealand is like, thanks, but no. Australia is not only the largest trading and business partner, but also has the closest history and culture. The two have a unique Trans-Tasman agreement that states that citizens of each country can migrate and have automatic residency. The two go hand in hand. However, when Australia isn't looking, Canada kind of slips in and they kind of go off on secret dates. In conclusion, as humanity's last major expedition, you can imagine how the first settlers must have felt when they approached on this unknown world of glaciers, volcanoes, glowing caves, geysers, and giant 12-foot tall bird monsters. You don't need Lord of the Rings. New Zealand already is a real-life fantasy. Stay tuned. Nicaragua is coming up next.
Oh, interesting. So there's a lot to take in, and he put a lot in literally a 17-minute video, which is really cool. I will say I didn't know about the 12-foot birds. Honestly, I feel like there's a lot of it that I didn't know. I was gonna say that with all the fish, different kinds of fish. I work in the seafood department at my grocery store. People ask me for certain types of fish. I'm glad I've not heard of any of these. But if I had to work at a grocery store in New Zealand, I feel like it would suck because there's like so many different kinds of fish. And maybe I just have to not work in the meat or seafood section. It's just that's where I'm working at currently. But that translation though, let me know if that translation is accurate. To when the two guys were talking, this part right here. Let me know if this translation was accurate or whatnot, because egg jandals, I mean, I get that there's certain things in different countries that are called different things, but egg, like you're taking the piss. Like, I could understand that being like, seriously, but egg, I can't get over this. Literally just this word. That's the part right there. But also, it'll be a piece of piss. Like, what? I want to learn more of New Zealand's way of talking. I've heard a little bit of it, like when I'm watching the Blues, when they have like that whole like pregame show. I've been trying to watch more of the pregame stuff so that I can try and get more used to how New Zealanders talk and whatnot. And even Australians, because I know that the Brumbies, who we just beat, great game, by the way. I'm pretty sure that the Brumbies are the Australian team. So, they did a whole segment on them as well. And so, I've been watching a lot of, like Australian, New Zealand stuff recently. With AFL and then with rugby as well. It's just really cool. And like I said, New Zealand and Australia are they're basically the top two, or top two in like the top 5 countries that I would look to move to. One thing that would suck though is that I would then have to buy new cords for all of my like electronics. even if I have to like buy adapters, there's gonna be like adapters everywhere. Like for my game console. Listen, that's not stopping me. I've been trying to slowly convince people around me to also join me on a fun adventure. I haven't really convinced anyone yet, but I've thrown it out there, and they're just like, I don't know. One of my friends, he's like, I don't know if I want to go to Australia because of all the giant bugs and all this and that. And I'm just like, dude, just stay in the city part. You probably won't see them as much. I was like, yeah, I guess. I was like, no, do it. It'll be fun. It's not like you have a girlfriend here anyway. It's not like either of us have a girlfriend here anyway. So it's not like we're telling them to also come join us and move with us. Plus, I love the accents. I love the New Zealand, Australian accents. I find them to be super attractive. So it just means that I just need to move down there. I need to move down under. The other weird thing, though, is it's going to be weird to have Christmas in the summer. That's going to be another completely strange thing. I'm sure it's not going to be completely bad. And I do love the winter. And the winter is going to be more towards my birthday time. So it wouldn't be too bad. But still, like, it's going to be strange. I think it'll be fun, though. So, thanks for watching. If there's anything else you'd like me to react to, any other geography stuff, any other history on who else I can react to, let me know in the comment section below, and I'll give it a watch. This was fun. Anything else on New Zealand or Australia, let me know in the comment section below. I am 100% down to learn about my other favorite countries. Just saying, after watching the sports and after getting really into everything, I am totally down to move. And then people will probably, I'll go and people will make fun of how lost I am when they speak. Which is fine. But at some point, I would hope I would learn how the lingo and everything. But like I said, thanks for watching. Subscribe for more content just like this. And I'll hopefully see you guys around. See you later.